How does a perfect beach joke turn into a public legal blow? What begins as a harmless sunscreen rub becomes a chain of humiliations I stage, and he absorbs, until he answers me in the only calm, lawful way left. Can I still call him the villain when the result lands in my hands? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. I'm Zuleika Hart, 31, and I swear I didn't mean for the sunscreen thing to blow up like that. It started as a joke, a light moment on the beach, the kind that looks harmless in a story post. Matteo, a friend of Marina's, offered to help when I said I couldn't reach my back. Ethan was standing right there, talking to Nadia about seashells. I thought if I laughed, if I made it playful, everyone would see it as normal. But Ethan just froze, his face set like stone. Later, he said nothing, just handed me a towel. That silence, it felt like judgment. I told myself he was being controlling again, the way he always makes everything serious. We'd been stuck in routine, me working in marketing, him teaching science, both of us moving like polite strangers around each other. I craved attention, warmth, proof that I could still draw eyes. When Matteo's hand brushed my shoulder, people laughed, and for once, the laughter was for me. That night, Ethan washed the dishes without speaking. I leaned on the counter, waiting for him to ask who Matteo was, to show something, anger, jealousy, anything. He didn't. He just stacked the plates, wiped the sink, and said he was tired. It felt like punishment. So I doubled down. I told Marina it was ridiculous how men can't handle confident women. She agreed, called Ethan fragile. I liked that word. It made me feel powerful. I posted a photo of the beach, tagged no one, but the message was clear. Ethan saw it. I know he did. He just walked past me into the bedroom and closed the door softly, as if even his silence was careful. That door closing was louder than any fight we'd ever had. The morning after the beach, the kitchen smelled of coffee and salt. I hadn't even showered yet. I liked the faint feel of the sea on my skin. Ethan was already at the counter, 2 mugs waiting, but one was on my side of the island and one on his. The gap between them looked like a line we both knew not to cross. I said I slept fine. He nodded without looking up. The clink of his spoon against the mug was steady, controlled, like everything he did when he didn't want to talk. I started the conversation anyway. I told him it had been just sunscreen, nothing serious, nothing romantic. He said he knew. That was it. No anger, no raised voice. I tried to make him say more, asking if he was embarrassed. He said he wasn't, only tired of being turned into a story. I laughed and said he was too sensitive. He rinsed his cup and left it to dry. I told him he should be happy I still get attention. He said he'd rather I got respect. That sentence stuck to me like a sticker I couldn't peel off. I went to the balcony, phone in hand, scrolling through the comments from yesterday's post. People said I looked glowing. I liked every one of them. Marina had texted, "You killed it." That guy looked obsessed. I smiled. It was harmless. Ethan was acting like I'd cheated in front of a crowd, but it was just sunscreen, and I had laughed. I typed back to Marina that men love drama and hit send. Inside, I could hear Ethan moving in the bedroom, drawers opening, the soft thud of shoes. I went back in and asked if he was angry. He said he wasn't angry, just done arguing about respect in public. That word again. Respect. I said it was his pride talking, that he couldn't stand seeing me enjoy attention. He didn't answer, just slipped on his jacket. I told him I wouldn't apologize for being friendly. He said no one asked me to apologize. Then he left, closing the door gently, the kind of quiet that cuts deeper than shouting. The apartment felt bigger when he wasn't in it. I poured more coffee, opened my messages again. Marina was already posting clips from the beach, little snippets of laughter, the kind that makes everything seem fun and innocent. I watched the moment again. Matteo's hand spreading the lotion, my smile, Ethan in the background, still as a statue. I paused it there. He looked like the odd one out, and I hated that he made me feel guilty just by standing still. By afternoon, I convinced myself I'd done nothing wrong. I even typed out a caption draft. Sun, salt, and good vibes only. I didn't post it, yet. Instead, I texted Ethan, asking what he wanted for dinner. He replied, already ate. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. Then I posted the picture anyway. When he came home, the first thing he did was look at the table where my phone lay. He didn't touch it. He said he had a long day and asked if I'd locked the balcony door because Mr. Kovac downstairs complained about people laughing late at night. I said we were just talking, not partying. He nodded, checked the lock himself, then moved to the sink again. Always the sink, always washing something, even when it was clean. I told him Marina said he was overreacting. He said he didn't care what Marina said. I said she's a good friend who supports me. He said that's not always the same thing as being good for me. I rolled my eyes, called him moral police. He asked if I'd looked at the calendar. I hadn't. He said he'd added an appointment, downtown 9:25. I joked about him seeing a therapist. He said nothing, just wiped his hands, took his jacket again, and stepped outside for air. That night, I tried to make peace by starting small talk. I asked about school, about his students, about some parent who always complains. He gave short answers, polite but empty. I said he could at least act jealous. It would show he cared. He said he didn't want to act anything. I told him I needed more from him, not silence. He said silence was safer than saying things he'd regret. Then he turned off his lamp. When he fell asleep, I couldn't. I lay there replaying the beach moment in my head, how everyone had laughed, how free I felt, how alive. Ethan's breathing was slow beside me, steady. It made me angry that he could sleep so easily while I was stuck thinking about how small he made me feel. I got up, took my phone, and stepped onto the balcony. The night air was cool. I called Marina and whispered, trying not to wake him. I told her I was tired of men who can't handle confident women. She laughed softly, said I deserved better energy. Down below, I saw Mr. Kovac on his balcony watering plants. He looked up when he heard my voice. I waved and whispered that I was fine, just on a call. He nodded and went inside. When I hung up, I stayed there for a long time, staring at the dark street. I thought about Matteo's tan hands, the way he smiled like I was a spark. Maybe I just wanted that feeling again, being noticed. Ethan used to look at me that way. When I came back inside, Ethan was still asleep. His phone screen lit up once. Private. It buzzed softly, then went dark. I picked it up, tempted to see who it was, but it locked right away. I placed it back, too hard maybe, because he stirred. I slipped into bed quickly, pretending to sleep. He turned toward me for a moment, then away again. In the morning, he was already gone. On the fridge was a note. Meeting, early. Don't wait up. There were 2 mugs again, washed, upside down. I poured coffee for one. I told myself his silence was guilt, that he knew he was pushing me away. I wasn't the one breaking us. I was the one reacting. Later, Marina sent another message. People love the beach clip, you look powerful. I typed, he hates it. She replied, good. Maybe he'll wake up. I wanted to believe that. I wanted his silence to break, even if it meant another fight. Anything would be better than this careful quiet. When I scrolled again, I saw the comments multiplying. Someone tagged me in a story I didn't recognize. I clicked and saw the same scene again. Matteo smiling, me laughing, Ethan blurred in the back. The caption read, some husbands don't realize what they've got till someone else does. I stared at it too long. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Ethan. Please stop posting about that day. I typed back, if you have something to say it to me, not through a message. He didn't reply. That evening, he came home early. I thought he'd bring it up, but he just took his jacket off, opened his laptop, and sat at the table. His fingers moved quickly over the keyboard. I asked what he was doing. He said just organizing files. I peeked over and saw folders: home, auto, bank. I said that's boring work. He said sometimes boring is good. When I laughed, he didn't. He closed the laptop, stood, and looked at me like he wanted to say something important, but he didn't. Instead, he walked to the bedroom and shut the door again. I heard the latch click. The sound was sharp, final. I held my phone, waiting for a message. Any message, but nothing came. Then, just as I was about to plug it into charge, the screen lit up. A muted call. Private. I stared at it, hesitated, and finally swiped to delete the preview. The door inside the bedroom stayed closed. Ethan's footsteps stopped right behind it, as if he was listening to see what I'd do next. By Monday, the video had spread farther than I expected. Someone had tagged me in a story from the beach, and now co-workers were laughing about it in the office. I walked through the open-plan floor with my sunglasses still on, pretending it didn't bother me. Marina waved from her desk, whispering that the clip had over 1,000 views. I laughed too loudly and said, attention was good for brand energy. People glanced up from their screens but didn't comment. I could feel their quiet judgment hiding under polite smiles. I opened my laptop, telling myself I was fine. I checked my email, scrolled through comments, watched the view counter tick up again. Ethan's name popped up in a text preview. Just one word, enough. I deleted it before anyone could see. Marina leaned over my cubicle wall, whispering that I shouldn't let him control me. She said husbands like him get scared when their wives start shining. I liked that. It sounded smart and modern. At lunch, I joined the marketing team on the patio. They teased me lightly about being the viral wife. I laughed with them, pretending it didn't sting. One of the guys asked if Ethan was jealous. I said no, he was just traditional. They all nodded. Like that explained everything. I told myself it was better this way, people seeing me as confident, not dull. When I got back to my desk, the printer next to me started up, even though no one had sent anything. A single blank page slid out. The sound startled me. I joked that maybe the office ghost was printing compliments. No one laughed. I looked at Marina. She shrugged. When I reached to throw the page away, my phone buzzed again. It was Ethan, calling. I pressed decline. I didn't want him scolding me at work. A few minutes later, Priya, our HR manager, appeared behind me. She said softly that she needed a quick word. I followed her into a small room with glass walls. She closed the door and gestured for me to sit. She looked uncomfortable, which irritated me. She said someone had complained about a staff member posting content mocking her spouse. I laughed, said people were too sensitive. She asked if I realized the beach video had our company logo in one of the shots from a co-worker's towel. I said that was hardly my fault. She nodded, wrote something on a notepad, and said I should be more careful with personal posts. I told her it was just sunscreen, and that Ethan was being dramatic. She said it wasn't about Ethan, it was about optics. I said the company shouldn't police people's personal lives. Her mouth tightened. She asked if everything was fine at home. I said, of course, it was perfect. She didn't believe me. I could tell by the way she looked at me for a few seconds before saying I could go. When I got back to my desk, Ethan's name flashed on my phone again. This time it was a calendar notification shared from our family app. Meeting, personal. I frowned. I hadn't seen that before. I asked Marina if she thought Ethan was seeing someone behind my back. She said maybe he was, to make me jealous. That idea made my stomach twist. I minimized my browser and saw that my work spreadsheet was open. One I'd left half done. The top tab had initials and numbers. For a second, I thought I saw Ethan's initials in the list, but I blinked and it was gone. Maybe I was imagining it. I stretched, told myself to focus. Still, I couldn't stop thinking about that calendar event. meeting, personal. The words looked planned, deliberate. Around 4, Priya walked by again. I smiled to show I was fine. She smiled back, but didn't stop. Marina whispered that HR people love to feel powerful. I nodded and said Priya was jealous because I got more likes than her corporate posts. Everyone laughed. It made me feel safe again, like I was in control. After work, we went to the coffee shop across the street. I ordered a sweet latte, telling the girls that Ethan thought sugar was poison. Marina rolled her eyes, said he sounded exhausting. I agreed. I said he used to be fun before he became obsessed with rules. She asked if I ever thought about being with someone who actually admired me. I told her that wasn't the point, but part of me liked the thought. While we were talking, my phone vibrated again. Another reminder. Downtown 1340. I frowned. I hadn't added that either. I told Marina, who laughed and said maybe he had a secret hobby. I joked maybe he was joining a chess club. Still, something about those times, 9:25 last week, now 13:40, felt precise, almost official. I wanted to ask him what they meant, but pride stopped me. When I got home, Ethan's car was in the driveway. I walked in, smiling like nothing was wrong. He was at the table with his laptop open. The folders on the screen were neat: home, auto, bank. I asked if he was organizing our bills. He said yes, quietly. I leaned over and said he looked like an accountant. He didn't smile. I brought up the HR talk, trying to sound amused. I said people at work were overreacting, that some boring partner must have complained. He said maybe I should take a break from posting. I said maybe he should stop acting like my father. His jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. Instead, he said he was going out early the next morning and asked me not to stay up late. I asked where he was going. He said, downtown. I laughed, said he was being mysterious. He said nothing, just closed his laptop. I followed him to the kitchen, asking why he couldn't tell me things anymore. He said he didn't want to argue. I said he never wanted to argue, that he just shut down until I looked crazy for talking. He looked at me calmly and said, maybe he just didn't want to be recorded for someone's entertainment. That made me angry. I told him the beach video wasn't about him. He said maybe it should have been. I said he was playing the victim. He said he was trying to stay respectful. I hated that word by then. Respectful. It sounded like a wall. He left the kitchen and went to the bedroom. I followed, saying he couldn't just walk away. He turned to me, said softly that I should think about what I really wanted. I said I wanted him to stop being so cold. He said he wasn't cold, just tired of pretending. Then he sat on the bed, opened his phone and started typing. I stood there, waiting for him to look up. He didn't. I said he'd regret treating me this way. He said maybe. Then he muted his phone and set it face down. I went to the bathroom, looked at my reflection, and whispered that he'd pushed me into this distance. If he had just smiled, just joined the fun, none of it would have gone this far. When I came out, he was still sitting there, scrolling. I heard the faint ding of a calendar reminder from his phone. He tapped dismiss and lay down. I turned off the light, furious at how peaceful he looked. The next morning, I woke up alone again. On the counter was a single note. Breakfast's in the fridge. I opened it, just eggs and toast, cold already. On the fridge door, another sticky note. Meeting. Personal. I peeled it off and crumpled it, but my hands were shaking. At work, Marina asked if Ethan had said anything about the HR talk. I said he didn't care. She said he probably felt guilty. I smiled at that because I wanted it to be true. I told her maybe I'd post another picture, something lighter. She grinned and said to make it one he couldn't ignore. That afternoon, as I shut down my computer, Priya appeared again. She said she hoped everything was fine at home. I told her it was perfect, maybe better than ever. She nodded slowly. When I reached the elevator, my phone buzzed with another reminder. Downtown 1340. I watched the numbers change on the screen while the elevator doors opened. Priya called after me, saying again, "Can I have a quick word?" The elevator bell chimed softly, echoing through the hall as I stepped inside, pretending not to hear her. That Friday, Marina convinced me to come out for a rooftop bar night. She said I needed to reclaim the fun, that everyone had already moved on from the beach video except me. I said Ethan still hadn't. She rolled her eyes, said, "Husbands forget faster when you give them something else to think about." I laughed, half nervous, half flattered. The air on the roof smelled of lime and beer, the city lights soft behind us. I told myself I deserved this break. When people asked where Ethan was, I said he was grading papers again. Someone joked that he was probably scared to come out after what happened. I said he could use a little embarrassment. It would make him human. The group laughed. I noticed a few phones pointed our way. Marina whispered that I should give them a quote. I raised my glass and said loudly, "To partners who trust us to live a little." Cheers rang around the table. I saw a flash from across the roof, someone filming. Half an hour later, Matteo appeared near the bar, shirt loose, hair damp from the humidity. Marina waved him over before I could decide what to do. He grinned, said he was just grabbing a drink after his surf class. I joked that he followed me. He said maybe he should if my husband wouldn't. The table laughed again. I hated how good that felt. He offered to buy me another drink. I said yes, even though I didn't need one. When I went to post a photo, Ethan's name sat at the top of my messages. No new texts, just old ones ending in silence. I pushed the thought away and took a selfie with Matteo instead. He leaned close, his arm brushing mine. Marina shouted to get our faces in the city light. I smiled big, forced, but perfect. As soon as I hit post, notifications began popping. "Queen energy," one comment said. "He doesn't deserve you," said another. I told myself it was harmless attention. But Ethan didn't call that night. He didn't even message. When I got home, his side of the bed was untouched. The next morning, I scrolled through the new likes. The video from the bar had been shared again. The caption read, "If he won't love her in public, someone else will." I laughed, even though my stomach tightened. I told Marina it was funny. She said, "Let them talk. It's power." I agreed, but part of me wanted Ethan to see it and react. Silence felt like losing. That evening, I went walking near the beach promenade, just to clear my head. The sun was orange on the water, and families were packing up. Then I heard a voice behind me, Matteo again. He said he lived nearby and asked if I wanted company. I hesitated, then said sure. We walked, talking about nothing. I asked if he thought I overreacted about Ethan. He said maybe Ethan just couldn't handle competition. I said marriage shouldn't be competition. He smiled, said it always is. At one point, he reached to move my hair from my shoulder. My skin prickled where his hand touched. He said I looked tired, like I was carrying someone else's weight. I told him I was fine, that people just misread me. He nodded, said he understood. We stopped for a selfie by the water. The flash caught both of us mid-smile. I posted it with the caption, "Finally seen." Later that night, Ethan came home while I was folding laundry. He walked straight past me, set his bag down, and started dinner in silence. I said I was going out again. He said, "All right." No tone, no anger, just plain words. I told him he didn't even care where I went. He said he trusted me to make my own choices. I said, "You're saying that like it's a warning." He said, "Maybe it is." He ate quietly, washed the dishes, and disappeared into the study. I followed, trying to get him to talk. On the desk was a thin binder labeled Utilities. I picked it up, joking about how organized he'd become. It was heavier than it looked. He reached out and took it back calmly. "Bills," he said. I laughed, told him he could be honest if he was hiding something. He said, "Not everything is about hiding." Then he closed the drawer. I went to the living room and opened my phone again. The bar video had hit over 5,000 views. Comments were turning mean toward Ethan now, calling him insecure. I felt a thrill reading them. For once, the world agreed with me. The next day, our community center held a small mixer for local families. Marina insisted I come. She said showing up happy would quiet gossip. Ethan came too, but we arrived separately. People noticed. At one point, a group gathered for drinks, and someone shouted, "Tell us the Sunscreen story." Marina laughed and waved at me to stand up. I hesitated, then did. I said lightly that my husband just needed to learn to share sunshine. Everyone laughed except Ethan. A woman near the door muttered that it was cruel. I heard her but ignored it. I saw phones again, subtle, glowing. The chant started, "Toast, toast." So I raised my glass and said, "To freedom from fragile egos." The cheer went up, loud enough to shake the ceiling. I saw a flash, someone filming again. Ethan stood by the exit, watching but not speaking. After the toast, he walked out. Marina told me to let him cool off, but I followed. Outside, behind the hall, the night smelled of wet concrete. He stood under a streetlight. I said he was embarrassing me by walking away. He said I was doing fine, embarrassing myself. I told him people loved me because I was honest. He said honesty wasn't the same as cruelty. I said he should stop playing the victim. He said he wasn't playing anything anymore. Then he walked to his car without another word. I stood there, shaking. When I went back inside, Marina tried to hand me another drink. I told her I was fine. My phone buzzed again, notifications exploding. Someone had posted the toast video already. The caption read, "Wife roasts husband, crowd loves it." I stared at my face frozen mid-laugh. Ethan's silhouette stood blurred behind me. When I got home later, he was already asleep in the guest room. The red circle on the wall calendar caught my eye. Some date in next month. No note, no label, just red ink, perfect circle. I frowned, wondering what it meant. I sat at the kitchen counter, scrolling. Messages poured in, some cheering, some asking if I was divorcing him. I laughed bitterly, typed, "People take jokes too seriously." Then I saw his reflection in the hallway mirror. He was standing behind me, quiet. I asked if he was spying now. He said he was just getting water. I asked if he'd seen the post. He said yes. I waited for him to shout, to break the calm. He just said, "You win." Then he walked back to the guest room. The next morning, I woke to the smell of printer toner. I followed the sound to the study. The printer spit out a blank page and stopped. I looked around, but Ethan wasn't there. On the desk was the utilities binder again, still closed. I picked it up, flipped through. Just regular papers. Bills, statements, receipts. But one page in the back was thicker, plain white, no text. I put it back quickly. That night, when he came home, I tried to break the ice. I said people online thought he was brave for staying married to me. He said, "They don't know me." I said maybe he should show them. He said he didn't need to prove anything anymore. His calm made me furious. I shouted that he was making me look like a monster. He said I didn't need help with that. Then he walked away again, slow and quiet, like always. After he went to bed, I opened the balcony door and stared out. Mr. Kovac was out again, watering his plants. He nodded to me, polite. I waved weakly. From the apartment behind me came the sound of Ethan's laptop closing. I went back in, poured wine, and looked at the binder again, still heavy, still ordinary, still hiding something, I was sure. I told myself I'd figure it out soon. Then, from the hall, I heard the faint click of the bedroom door closing. At the same time, my phone buzzed. A new message request from an unknown account with no name, just an eye emoji. I hesitated, but curiosity won. I opened it. It was a screen grab of my own toast from the community hall, frozen mid-laugh. Underneath, a caption someone added, "He's done playing." I stared at it, cold inside, not sure if it was a threat or a warning. The following weekend was my father's birthday dinner. one of those long family tables at a noisy restaurant where everyone talks over each other. I had told myself it would be a good chance to reset things, to make Ethan see that we could still be normal in front of people. When we arrived, the balloons were already drooping over the cake, and my mother was waving us to sit down. Ethan came straight from work, shirt sleeves rolled, quiet as usual. I told him he should smile more for my father's sake. He said he'd do his best. Matteo had texted earlier, joking that he might crash the family party. I thought it was funny, so I mentioned it out loud, half laughing. My Aunt Lydia caught it first. "That the same man from the beach?" she asked, eyebrows raised. I said yes, and that it was no big deal, he was just friendly. Ethan kept cutting his food, not saying a word. Marina, sitting beside me as my +1, whispered that he looked ready to cry. I laughed too loudly and said he was fine. When the waiter brought the cake, someone asked for a toast. My father said a few kind words. My mother smiled. Then Lydia nudged me to say something. I stood and joked that the men in our family might not be perfect, but at least they're predictable. People laughed politely, but Ethan looked down at his plate. Then, without thinking, I said it, that if he ever spent half as much time looking at me as he did at his spreadsheets, I wouldn't need sunscreen from other people. The laughter around the table came in short bursts, uneasy. Lydia frowned. My mother whispered my name in warning. Ethan didn't speak. He just put down his fork and folded his napkin. The silence after that felt long enough to swallow the whole restaurant. I tried to lighten it, saying it was just a joke. Lydia leaned forward and said softly, "Would it still be funny if he said it about you?" That made me flush. I told her it wasn't the same thing. She said maybe that was the problem. My father cleared his throat, trying to move on, asking about work. I told everyone the company might promote me soon. My mother smiled and asked if Ethan was proud. He said of course. I said he didn't sound like it. My mother's eyes darted between us, nervous. Marina sipped her drink, pretending to scroll her phone. I could see in her reflection that she was filming small clips for her stories. After dinner, we all went for a walk in the park nearby to let Nadia play on the swings. She was laughing with Ethan, trying to show him a flower she'd found. I joined them, still annoyed at how quiet he was being. I asked if he planned to scold me later for my joke. He said there was nothing left to scold. I said he always turned things serious. He said maybe I should start seeing things as serious. That tone, so calm, so final, felt like defeat, not discussion. While Nadia climbed the slide, my mother walked beside me. She said I was pushing him too hard, that a man's silence can mean he's already given up. I told her she was being dramatic. She said, "You think it's power, but it's distance." I said Ethan had plenty of that. She sighed, said some things can't be fixed once they break. I rolled my eyes. She always thought she was wise. A few minutes later, Nadia tugged my sleeve. She asked why Daddy sleeps in the other room now. I froze. My mother looked away, pretending to check her bag. I knelt and said Daddy's been busy grading papers. She frowned. "But he brings the laptop to the kitchen," she said. "I told her he likes quiet there." Ethan came over and tied her shoelace, his hand steady. I told him she was asking questions. He said children always do when adults lie. Then he lifted Nadia and carried her toward the car. I walked behind them, furious. I whispered to my mother that he was trying to make me look bad. She said he didn't have to try. I ignored her and caught up with him. I asked why he'd said that. He said truth doesn't always flatter. I said maybe he was enjoying making me look guilty. He said he didn't enjoy any of this. His voice cracked slightly at the end. I wanted to say something soft but couldn't. When we got home, he went straight to his study. I followed, needing to break the coldness somehow. On the table lay his open phone. A message thread titled "Follow Up" blinked briefly before disappearing. He had deleted it as I entered. I asked what that was. He said, "Work." I said I didn't believe him. He said, "You don't have to." That tone again, steady, unbothered, impossible to argue with. I stormed out to the kitchen, slammed a cabinet, and shouted that I wasn't some criminal. He didn't answer. A few minutes later, I heard his phone alarm buzz faintly from the other room. The screen glowed for a second. Paper drop. Then he turned it off. I stood there staring at the light under the study door, the faint scratch of pen on paper, the printer whirring once. When he finally came out, he said he was going to sleep early. I asked if he'd rather stay in the guest room again. He said yes, quietly. The next morning, the house felt like an office, too neat, too still. He was already gone. A mug sat in the sink, rinsed, handle turned toward the wall. On the fridge, another sticky note. Meeting, personal. I crumpled it, tossed it, then fished it back out and smoothed it flat. It bothered me that he was planning things without me. Later that day, we met at the park again for Nadia's playdate. She ran ahead, giggling. I tried to make small talk with him, asking if he'd seen the new comments online. He said he didn't look at that anymore. I said he should, because people were starting to realize I was right. He said, "About what?" I said, "About us." He didn't respond. I told him I missed when we used to talk. He said, "I didn't want talking. I wanted agreement." I said he made me feel invisible. He said I did that myself. I said he was cruel. He said he was tired. I laughed, pretending it didn't sting, but my throat tightened. Nadia came back with a new drawing she'd made at school. She handed it to him. It was a stick figure family, 3 people holding hands, but the father stood apart, drawn in grey. Ethan smiled weakly, said it was nice. I told Nadia she forgot to colour Daddy properly. She said she didn't forget. That was how he looked now. The silence that followed hurt more than shouting. I said she shouldn't say things like that. She shrugged and ran off to play. Ethan folded the paper carefully and put it in his pocket. We sat on the bench a long time, saying nothing. The swing chains creaked, the sound slow and uneven. Then Nadia's voice cut through. "Why did the other man touch you if Daddy was there?" The question hit like a slap. People nearby turned their heads. Ethan's eyes stayed on the ground. I said it was just sunscreen. She said she knew, but Daddy didn't like it. I stood quickly, told her to play. My voice came out sharper than I meant. Ethan stood too. He said we should head home. As he spoke, his phone buzzed once in his pocket. The screen lit with an alarm label. Paper drop. He silenced it immediately. That small movement felt heavier than any argument. I watched him clip the leash on Nadia's bag, calm as ever. I wanted to demand to know what paper meant, but my pride froze me. He looked at me once and said, "We'll talk soon." Then he turned toward the car. As I followed, I thought about the red circle on the calendar, about the silent alarms, about the folders he kept locked. I told myself it was just organization, his way of coping. Still, my hands were shaking when I reached for the door handle. The metal felt cold, almost wet. Inside the car, no one spoke. Nadia hummed softly in the back seat. Ethan drove, eyes steady on the road. I stared at the passing streetlights, trying to read meaning in the rhythm of their flashes. I kept hearing my daughter's question in my head, over and over. Why did the other man touch you if Daddy was there? When we pulled into the driveway, he parked carefully, straight, precise. He unbuckled Nadia, kissed her forehead, and told her to get ready for bed. Then he looked at me and said, "We'll handle this properly." The way he said properly made the air change. Not a threat, not even anger, just finality. I wanted to ask what that meant, but he was already walking inside. From the doorway, I heard a low hum start up from his study. A shredder chewing something, stopping, starting again. I smiled to myself, telling my reflection in the hallway mirror that it was all just theatre. He was trying to scare me into guilt, but my hands wouldn't stop trembling, and that quiet mechanical sound kept going long after he'd turned off the light. The next week I decided I was done feeling guilty. If he wanted to act like a stranger, fine, I could play that game better. I made plans with Marina to meet at the supermarket before a small get-together she was hosting later. She said we'd buy snacks, maybe some wine, something photogenic. I laughed, though my stomach felt tight. I told myself this would be my weekend to look unbothered. At the store, the fluorescent lights made everything look too clean. I pushed the cart slowly, posing between aisles while Marina filmed. She said, "Smile like you don't care." I said, "I don't." People in the line watched us whispering. One woman's phone glowed with a gossip page, my name, my face, and a caption about the viral Sunscreen wife. I laughed, but my hands trembled when I lifted the grapes. As I paid, my phone vibrated with a text from Ethan. "Pick up Nadia at 3. No greeting, no sign-off." Just that, I typed. I'm busy, but didn't send it. He deserved to see me enjoying life. Maybe that would make him realize what he was losing. In the parking lot, Marina asked if I wanted to invite Matteo to her party. I said maybe. She grinned and said, "Make him jealous." I didn't correct her when she called Ethan the ex. When I got home, Ethan's car was already there. He was in the kitchen packing food into containers, neat rows on the counter. I said he didn't have to play single dad. I could handle our daughter's meals. He said calmly that routine was good for Nadia. I told him routine kills marriage. He said maybe ours had been dead for a while. His tone didn't even shake. I tried to peek at his phone on the table. The screen lit up for a second. An incoming call marked private. He silenced it with a thumb press. I asked who it was. He said, "Not your concern." I snapped that we were still married. He said, "Legally, yes." That word legally stung more than it should have. After he left with Nadia for school pickup, I snooped around the study. The laptop on the desk was open, but locked. The desktop background showed tidy folders. Archive A, Archive B. I clicked one but couldn't open it. A CloudSync window popped up. File uploaded successfully. My heart beat faster. He was backing things up. Why? I shut the lid quickly when I heard the garage door. He walked in, calm as always, asked if I'd seen the grocery list he left. I said no. He said it was fine. He'd handle it. That phrase, "he'd handle it," was starting to repeat everywhere. That evening, while Nadia watched cartoons, I tried to start a conversation. I said people online were still talking about us. He said we didn't need to feed it. I said they were saying he looked weak. He said public noise doesn't change truth. I said he could at least defend me. He said I didn't ask for defense. I asked for distance. Then he went back to chopping vegetables. After dinner, I walked to the balcony for air. The sky was turning purple. I could hear neighbors laughing somewhere below. I called Marina, whispered that he was making me feel invisible. She said to post a photo tonight. Something bold. I said maybe with Matteo at the beach pop-up this weekend. She laughed and said, "Perfect, let him stew." When I hung up, I turned to find Ethan at the door, arms crossed. I told him I was taking Nadia to the pop-up tomorrow with friends. He asked who'd be there. I said Marina, maybe Matteo. His face didn't change. He said, "That's not appropriate." I said he didn't get to decide what's appropriate anymore. He said, "I'm still her father." I said, "Then act like one instead of a lawyer." He looked at me a long time, then said, "Boundaries are healthy." I laughed in his face, but he didn't flinch. Later that night, I noticed his desk drawer slightly open. Inside sat a small USB stick labeled with that day's date. Beside it, a sticky note. "Bring forms." I picked it up, curious, but the drawer locked when I tried to pull it farther. I jumped at the sound. He was standing in the doorway. He said, "Looking for something?" I said, "You hide everything like a spy." He said, "I just keep records." I said, "Of what? My mistakes?" He said, "Of mine." Then he reached past me, turned the key and pocketed it. I followed him down the hall, asking what the note meant. He said nothing, just started loading laundry. I accused him of manipulating me, of trying to make me paranoid. He said, "You're doing that all by yourself." The calmness in his voice terrified me more than shouting ever could. When he finished, he looked at the clock and said he had an early errand tomorrow. I said, "Another mysterious downtown thing?" He nodded once. "Something like that." I tried to mock him, saying he was dramatic, always planning secret missions. He said, "It's called preparation." I shouted that he was killing our marriage with all this coldness. He said, "Our marriage is already on life support." Then he walked to the guest room. The hum of the shredder started again a few minutes later, softer this time, like paper sighing instead of tearing. I stood in the hallway, dizzy with anger. I wanted to grab his laptop, to open those files, to prove he was hiding something. Instead, I went to the mirror and took a selfie, smiling wide, eyes glossy. I typed the caption, "Peace looks good on me." Then I posted it. Within minutes, likes poured in. Comments too. "Strong women stay glowing." "He's boring." "You're better." I soaked them up like medicine. When I refreshed again, one comment stood out. "He's planning something." "Watch." It was from a private account, no photo. I deleted it quickly, telling myself it was just a troll. The next morning, the house smelled like printer toner again. Ethan was in the kitchen, dressed neatly, tying his tie. He poured coffee into 2 mugs, but only drank from one. I asked why he made 2. He said habit. I said, "You still have habits of me, huh?" He said, "Not for long." He gathered some papers, slipped them into a brown envelope, then into his briefcase. I tried to peek inside, but he closed it smoothly. I asked what forms he was bringing. He said, "Household things." "Bills?" I asked. "Something like that." I wanted to demand the truth, but Nadia walked in sleepy-eyed, asking for breakfast. He smiled at her, kissed her forehead, and said he'd pick her up after school. She asked why we never eat together anymore. He said schedules didn't match. I said he was right. Some people have real jobs. He didn't answer. When they left, I sat on the couch staring at his empty mug. My reflection in the dark coffee looked like someone I didn't recognize. Smug, frightened, both. I told myself he'd break first. He always did. That afternoon, I took Nadia to the pop-up beach event with Marina. Matea was there, shirtless again, handing out flyers. Marina cheered when she saw us. I posted photos of us laughing, bright filters, sunny skies. For a moment, I forgot the tightness in my chest. On the way home, my phone buzzed with a message from Ethan. "Be home by 6. We need to talk." I typed, "About what?" He didn't reply. When we got back, he was waiting in the kitchen. His face looked calm, almost gentle. He helped Nadia with her bag, then said he'd put her movie on so we could speak privately. When she was settled, he faced me. He said he'd spent months trying to reason, to explain. He said he was done trying to convince me of anything. I asked if he wanted a divorce. He said he wanted fairness. I said fairness was a joke. He said, "Then I'll handle this properly." I laughed, thinking it was just another bluff. Properly sounded like paperwork and patience. 2 things he hid behind. He picked up his briefcase, adjusted the strap and said, "You'll understand soon." Then he walked into his study and shut the door. A few minutes later came the faint sound again. The shredder humming, stopping, starting. I poured myself wine, sat by the window, and whispered that he was bluffing, that he'd never actually do anything. But the sound of the machine didn't stop, and beneath it I heard something else. A printer waking up, feeding a single sheet, then falling silent. Monday morning, I dressed bright on purpose, ready to post another New Week, New Me story before my client meeting. The office tower lobby smelled of polish and coffee. I fixed my lipstick in the glass, smiled, lifted my phone. A man in a suit approached, asked softly, "Are you Zuleika Hart?" I said yes, thinking he wanted a signature. He handed me an envelope. Inside, my name, Ethan's, and words I didn't expect: divorce petition with temporary orders and custody schedule effective today. Across the lobby, Ethan stood still, nodded once. The elevator doors closed between us. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.